Welcome to the Taylor Made Tasty podcast. I'm Taylor, retired serial quitter turned goal boss coach, speaker, and consultant. I believe a beautiful life starts with a beautiful mindset. Join me as we amplify confidence, resilience, and actionable tools on the road to quit quitting on you and your vision. You are worthy of your goals, so let's go get there. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Made Tasty, the podcast. I used to have a series on IGTV that I called 10 with Taylor, and I thought, why not revive it here on the podcast now? The idea behind these is 10 with Taylor is to inject some insightful, thought-provoking, and very just candid conversation around life and mindset and up-leveling our positive self-talk, our worth, and overall self-love. So I'm going to do my best to keep these to 10 minutes or less. Or 10 minutes-ish. So they are easy, digestible, and packed with gems for you to take and apply in your life. As I mentioned, these are candid, so like many of the rest of the humans on earth, I have been experiencing some comparison. And even though I have done years of mindset work, it still comes in waves. And I do want to mention that comparison happens when comparing myself to just myself. Comparison from one run to the next run, or comparison in my business of a great month versus a quieter month. And this also happens with comparison to other people. And I wanted to share some tools that I use to combat comparison when it does come up. I also want to acknowledge that nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are just human to feel these feelings. And if you think it's just you, I love you, but you are so incorrect. So know that you are not alone in that. These feelings come up when we see someone we would like to look like. A person may have a handbag we want, be on a trip we want to take, have a career or business we'd like to have, earn the degree we want, build a family we want. I wish I could speak like them. Why can't I grow my social media like them? The list goes on, right? And so how I choose to view comparison is like this. When you check in to someone else's life with thoughts of comparison, you check out of your own life. It puts the focus on the wrong person, and you can only control your own life. So we waste precious energy checking into someone else's life, and we're creating assumptions about them based on perceived facts. We don't have actual facts. I don't care how close you are to that person. You don't have actual facts for anyone because you are not them. The first thing I do when comparison comes up is I confront the comparison by understanding the origin. You're going to confront your comparison by understanding the origin. And that is, if you can identify how comparison developed in the first place, you can start to work on the change of it, right? So paying attention to what you're comparing, that really speaks to what is on your heart. So if you are comparing money, if you are comparing body, if you are comparing vacations, houses, there's an underlying reason why that comparison is coming up. And that is the work that needs to be done. That is the work that is on your heart. There's a reason it's coming up for comparison because in that lane, you're feeling less than. So now you know where to put the work, right? Like, for example, for me, comparison does come up in my business when I see great ideas happening, or I'm perceiving that a certain money figure is being made by a certain coach or something like that. Then for me, it's like, okay, Taylor, you have to listen to that. Is that important to you? Is the having a different kind of impact on social media important to you? Is making a certain financial figure important to you? Then lean into that. Do the work in that lane. And one thing I want to remind you of is that comparison, by the very definition, requires metrics. And what's typically happening in the comparison in your mindset and in your world is that you are comparing your bad, quote unquote, to someone's really good. You're comparing the things that you don't love about your life or yourself to the things that you are perceiving you love about somebody else. When you only use a metric of comparing the good, by definition, of comparing two things is that you are comparing the full story. Just like you were to put one SUV against the other, you're going to look at the greatest things about the SUV compared to each other, but also the things that are less than. The material type, safety rating, like all of those different things. But you don't just compare the greatness of one SUV to the worst parts of the other SUV. Comparison requires metrics that go from good to good and less than to less than, right? This quote comes up often in my mind, and it is perfection is the lowest standard you can have, right? We want to desire great things in life, and that's incredible. We want big things to happen for ourselves, but to create that, we have to have this perfect life is the lowest standard we can have because it's not attainable. You have to figure out what that life looks like for you. Desire greater things in life, right? Like humility, empathy, love, things that we get to take with us. Instead, we're so focused on the material things and the status and the numbers that we forget that things like humility, empathy, and love are really what matter, because that's the impact that we get to have on the rest of the world. That's the mark that we get to leave on our community, our family, the people around us. Another tool that comes up for me is that I choose to be inspired versus feeling inadequate. Where I look at someone on stage, I look at someone speaking on social media, I look at someone's podcast, someone's book, right? I see the possibility versus feeling the inadequacy. And that's easier said than done, and it doesn't happen 100% of the time, right? But instead, how can we constantly stop competing with these just people around us? We're just competing. By comparison, we are competing with all of these people around us that have no idea that we're competing with them, that have no idea that they live in a tiny home in our brain and constantly come up. Instead, let's just appreciate that someone's done it before you. Appreciate that it's possible. Appreciate that you can see that happening for yourself because it's already been done. So how can you get inspired versus feeling inadequate? I want to really point out that it's the story that our mind tells ourselves that's the scariest. It's scary, the stories that we create in our mind based on this perceived facts versus reality. Truthfully, insecurities are universal. Insecurities are universal. Everyone feels them. And even though you perceive somebody's life as perfect, as these trips are perfect, their body is perfect, or they're running the perfect mile, or whatever it is, you have no idea what's happening. You have no idea what's happening on that vacation. You have no idea what's happening behind closed doors. And those insecurities are universal. It's a very unfortunate fact. And I just want to hug everybody and make them feel and believe that they are worthy. But that's the truth, that insecurities are universal, and it's the stories that we make up in our mind that are scary. And the absolute need to believe that you are worthy is the step to take in your comparison. We need to see our own successes. We need to water our own grass, stay in our own lane, eyes on our own paper, however you want to look at it. We have to see our own successes, because the problem is when we are constantly telling these stories about other people, looking around at all these other perceived facts, those things live inside our head. We are passing by what we have done to create an amazing world for ourselves. We are passing by the opportunity to celebrate our own successes because we're watering the grass over there. We're going into that person's lane over there. We're staring at that person's paper over there instead of staying in our own lane. All right, y'all, it is time for the quote of the episode. This quote is from Shannon L. Alder, and it just breathes life into why comparison has no place in your mindset. That your truest self starts when comparison is silenced. The quote is, "Personality begins where comparison leaves off. Be unique, be memorable, be confident, be proud." So take that into your week, your month, maybe even your year, and let comparison F right off. And as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my community. I'm so glad you showed up today, and let's go get there. Look at you, crushing it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Tailor Made Tasty podcast. My hope is you always leave with a takeaway to implement in your own goal-crushing journey. I would love if you could take a moment to leave a review. And if you're looking for a community of goal boss badasses just like you, be sure to check out tailormadetasty.com/membership.